Good afternoon, Women Up. Welcome to Women Up community. We are here for an amazing afternoon dialogue with one of my mentors from my very first year at CAR, going all the way back to 1984. I cannot tell you how impactful my relationship and friendship with Diana Bull has been over these years. So Diana, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing the beautiful flowers.
You're quite welcome.
So let me cue this up for the few people joining us who may not know Diana, and I don't think many, there can be many, but let me just tell you that she started in real estate when she was 22 years old, and she has over the years accolades, awards. Her involvement in organized real estate is absolutely legend. She is a Realtor Emeritus with organized real estate. She's a inductee into NAR's Hall of Fame. She has held many leadership positions both at the state level and at NAR. She has been an NAR director from California for 27 years, which, Diana, that's incredible. She was NAR's RVP. She was on the finance committee. She served under 7 different treasurers at NAR, and she was on the 2016 leadership team. She's also been president of the Santa Barbara Association of Realtors, and that was back in 1982. So this has been a kind of a rocket ship, and then just stayed elevated for many years. She was also, and this is when we got to work very closely together, in 1996 and 1997, she was the treasurer for the California Association of Realtors, and in 1999, she was our president and our Realtor of the Year. She also is lucky enough to call Santa Barbara, California, her home. Is well known in the community, highly involved in many activities there. And her motto during the years has always been 110%. And I will say, Diana, you exemplify 110%, and it's a pretty high bar. How did you come up with that?
Actually, it was my dad. I grew up in Chico, California, and my dad owned a construction company, and he taught us 4 kids, always give 110%. And he was the model, and we lived up to it. I had a wonderful, wonderful childhood, and it was my dad that inspired that, Leslie.
I don't even think I knew that I must have at some point, but that you grew up in Chico. How wonderful. And they have that wonderful park running right through it. That's incredible. That's right. Well, let me just start with the DSA, the Distinguished Service Award that you received this year, because that's such a big deal. And I'd really like you to explain to people the various ways in why that's so significant.
Well, the Distinguished Service Award is given to 2 people every year, and we have 1.4 million members. So about a year ago, when I decided I would like to put my application in, I was kind of motivated because Bob Kulick, who was our president in 1998, I was his president-elect, he was selected to receive that. And so I thought, well, Bob put in for it, and I think it took him 4 or 5 years. So I thought, well, I'll just get the process started.
Right.
But what I did is I went to a couple of other people, ladies, who have already received the DSA award in other states. And I asked them to coach me. What do I need to put in this application? And I'm a big believer in having a mentor, having a coach. And this was new territory for me. And I did exactly what the ladies said. And it's really an extensive application. Mine ended up being 21 pages.
Well, what are they looking for in that application, Diana?
Okay, first you have to start with anything you've done at national, and you have to bold all your leadership positions. Then you don't bold all your member. Then you have to do state. So you do the same thing for state, and you do it in chronological order. Then you do local association. Then you do anything to do with the societies, councils. And I've been a women's council member for a long time and have been on a lot of panels for them. Then you have to do your community service. And then you get your state AE, who's Joel Singer, and my local AE, Bob Hart. They are the only ones that can write a letter. However, this has never been done before. They also allow the association president. The association president for Santa Barbara this year, 2020, happens to be my daughter, Stacy Kaplan. Stacy can write like you cannot believe. She writes articles every week for newspapers. She wrote this letter to the DSA nominating committee. They have never had a letter from a daughter about her mom.
That's incredible. I didn't know this.
Yes, yes. So they have never seen a letter from to a mommy from her daughter. So they had that, and they had Joel and Bob's, and it was really, I couldn't believe that I got it. I was so surprised. I thought this.
You mean this is the first time you put in for it, you received it?
It actually is the second time I put in for it.
Yeah.
Because the first time I didn't have the coaching that I needed. I thought I can fill out a form. Oh, no, no, no. And the second time I put in for it, and with Stacy's help and Bob and Joel, but to be the first woman out of California, I am so pleased, because now I have already outreached to a couple of my friends who have done a lot of incredible things as a realtor. And I said, okay, you put in for it 3 or 4 times, no names mentioned. How many pages did you fill out? And they said about 10. I said, no, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And I said, I will help you. So I am now going to reach out to other California ladies, because it's about time that more of our ladies get recognized for everything that they've done for organized real estate.
You know, Diana, that's what WomanUP is all about. It's about women helping women. And, you know, from my perspective, I just want you to know over the years how much you have helped me, because when you see women taking leadership positions and making tough calls, listening, empathetic, but at some point the rubber hits the road, right? And you were always, you know, up at the mic with your voice, pushing for the right decisions in these policy committees. I mean, I remember that very clearly, because I was kind of intimidated by everything and I didn't have much of a voice. And here, what a role model, right? So this whole, you know, let me see it and let me help others do it. I mean, that's wonderful.
Well, at the same time that I became treasurer of CAR, and again, that was the first woman in 95 years. 95 years, CAR was old, never had a woman. And I said, you know what, I can do this. And when I ran up and down the state, I won by a huge margin. And one of the past presidents said to my husband, Harrison, oh, you will never see her as an officer. And I understand you're buying a franchise. Oh, that's not going to work either, because your wife won't be around to do it. And I looked at him and I said, watch me, just watch me.
Yeah.
And we built a very successful company with 3 offices, 140 agents, 9 staff. And at the same time, we were running a mortgage banking operation, which was #1 in town. So all of this while I was an officer and doing all this work. But you know what? You don't do it by sitting behind your desk. You need to help design and be an architect of the future of real estate. And the reason I think why I was able to hire so many agents over the years, they wanted to work for somebody who was knowledgeable, who was in the trenches, that could bring information back to them that is so critical for our real estate industry. So I attribute my success here in Santa Barbara to being involved at these levels, not just reading about it in the newspaper, but helping make the laws and actually designing our future.
Well, and you're also a teacher, you're an educator, you're out there explaining. And just to jump ahead a little bit, will you tell us a little bit about the outreach you did very early in your career to women to teach them about building wealth through real estate. I always thought that story was absolutely marvelous.
Are you talking about the equity sharing? Oh my, oh my. Well, let me just share with the audience that I married a very high-powered real estate attorney who had sued me. And then when I needed to be a plaintiff, I hired him, and then 2 years later we got married. And it was Harrison's idea. He said, Diana, you've got to reach out and help women. He had 9 lawyers working for them. And he said they need help making wise real estate decisions. So I did this itty bitty ad that said, women, do you need help making wise real estate decisions? And I immediately held quarterly seminars down at the DoubleTree, and I had 700 clients.
Oh my God.
And yes, it was such a need in our community. And I would bring financial planners in, I would bring in estate attorneys to help educate women. So it was such a need. But then I realized there were a lot of women who might have 5% down, but they didn't have the 20% down in the 90s that was really required. So I took 2 or 3 other women of some wealth, and I wrote an equity sharing book with my husband, and I put together almost 500 equity share arrangements in Santa Barbara. I supervised a lot of them because with that many clients, I think I had to hire about 18 agents. That's when I really started hiring a lot of agents, was because women needed help and we had to fill that void. So it was a huge, huge success, women helping women.
Right. I mean, that's been a theme of your whole career. And the fact that you have 2 daughters is just perfect in line and in terms of what they've done with their lives. So that's pretty fabulous. So
Yeah.
let me talk a little bit about, leadership in times like today. I think everybody's been scrambling a little bit. 2020 is not the year any of us expected. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing today?
Well, what I'm seeing, I think, is pretty positive. I see other leaders, owners of companies, and they're willing to learn new technologies.
Yes.
And we have really adopted 3D virtuals on all of our listings. Of course, we're all using Zoom, but another good one is House Party. And House Party is like sitting in your living room or a conference room, and it's best up to 4 people. So we're usually in a conference room with 2 or 3 other people, and it's a free app. So more leaders are really using technology, and they're being very adaptable. Also, in talking to other leaders about best practices, they're
Yes.
all willing to share best practices, especially the women. The women share the most, and they do.
Yes.
They just do. They are not intimidated at all. And what they have done, they're touching their agents even more, and they have a consistent calendar. So some agents, they will only call every other week. Some want to hear a call from their broker manager every week. And it's not even just a call. It could be a text. It could be anything. But now the brokers are touching their agents and communicating with them like they've never done before. Leslie, you've seen it because Don't you hold a big broker call every Friday?
Every Friday we get 2 to 250 people on a call for an hour and a half, and we have to typically cut it off because there's still more questions.
Wow.
I mean, the level of engagement, I could not agree with you more. It has been heightened and improved, and it's really a wonderful thing,
Sure.
a silver lining for sure.
It absolutely is. And actually, when I was president of CAR, I actually came up with the idea that we should have a Northern and Southern California broker conference. And that's when that started.
Right. I remember that.
Then NAR said, oh, a treasurer's forum, isn't that a great idea? Now NAR has adopted what we did 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And that SPF forum has just evolved to just be an incredible must attend on Friday afternoons. And I don't know how many people realize that it started back in your year. Yeah, I really remember that. So you're talking a little bit about being consistent, over communicating, leveraging technology, staying high touch. What are some of the other opportunities that you're seeing out there for leaders right now?
You know what? The leaders are sharing how they stay positive.
Yes.
And this is huge, because they're spending more time taking their dogs for walks early in the morning. They're going to doggy parks. They're stopping to smell the roses more. And anytime we have a girlfriend happy hour, we share the best happy practices. And
I love that. I love that.
Now these happy practices can be the latest book you read. I have a running list of the best documentaries and some of the best movies lately. So we're all sharing during our happy hour how to stay positive, how to take care of ourselves, and how to be happy during all this. Brian Buffini was always one of my personal coaches. And I learned from him, you need to take good care of yourself first so you can take care of other people. So we're doing that. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a core foundation of what we're trying to do here at WomanUP, is say, not only is it okay to take care of yourself, it's absolutely essential. So I love this happy practices. What are some of the other things that people are suggesting that we do to take care of ourselves?
We've shared some personal tips, like you're supposed to wear dark lipstick when you're on Zoom.
Okay, so, I need to improve.
Yeah. And I learned that from Betty Taish up in San Francisco.
Okay.
So we are giving each other some beauty hints. And for the people who are not managing offices, and I need to say this, I was the boss lady for 37 years.
Right.
Then when the recessions hit in 2007, we had to close our mortgage banking operations. We couldn't fund loans. Oh, we could fund them if we were willing to buy the loan back if the borrower defaulted within the first 2 years. And there's no way that we would guarantee loans. So this super successful mortgage banking operation had to close in 2007. 8 and 9, I couldn't close offices fast enough. And in 2010, we elected not to renew our franchise. We sold our biggest building, which was 10,000 square feet. My husband had a real bad bout with kidney cancer, survived it. But that's when my daughter, Stacy Kaplan, said, Mom, let's go independent. So she became the boss lady. So after 37 years of having that name, Stacy elected to go independent. And she does not have the temperament, nor does she want to have 140 agents. So I know the people who are listening now, if they are manager brokers, you have to know your numbers, when to close. It's like when to hold them, when to fold them. But there are many people probably on this call who know their numbers, and they really like dealing with their own clients, like my daughter. Now, when you have a price point in Santa Barbara of 1.3 million, you can do any math with any commissions you want. And you have to look at the reward. If you're running a brokerage, you're probably making 4% net after everything. But if you're selling or you're with a team, you're making a lot more money. So whatever is your temperament is what you need to do for yourself.
Right. Yeah, self-knowledge is key there. Let me go back and just talk to you a little bit more about communication and effective communication. One of the things that I've always thought about you is what a good listener you are. You don't interrupt, you take it in, and then you respond. You don't wait to talk, you're actually listening. And do you consciously do that?
Leslie, here's a secret you probably didn't know. Well, I was going to Chico State University. I was on the debate team, and I learned, while people are speaking, to really pay attention and take copious notes, and then to assimilate everything, and then to respectfully ask questions. And that's how you can turn a debate, by asking the right questions. But if anyone is ever in a boardroom, there's an old book, Games Your Mother Never Taught You. And one of the pages in there says, write things down, really appear to be listening, but I am listening. And then you know your point, counterpoint when you're speaking. So if someone has never been on a debate team, I highly recommend Toastmasters, and
Yes.
overcome the fear of speaking publicly, because you need to be a voice for real estate.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. And I was just thinking back to 1989 when Joel became CEO and I became, a chief economist, and going to a speech class at UCLA and having this teacher who, you would get up in front of this room of people and say, I know what I'm talking about, and here's what I'm going to say, and here's what I said. And it was really hard to do, and yet it just kind of helped launch me that way. And I do think that's really a very important skill for anybody, wherever you are in your career. If you haven't tackled that, it's very worthwhile. And then you build up enough skill and confidence that you actually can just be yourself, because you've done all the work kind of around it. And it does become, you always get a little bit nervous, but it becomes a lot easier. I also wanted to say your thing about taking notes. Absolutely. I mean, I am a voracious note taker, and then I have to highlight because I'm a visual learner. And I find if I go through that process, I remember it, but I've just got to try to load it into this brain.
No, we are soul sisters.
Yeah, we are.
I read everything. Never ever go into a board meeting or a meeting of any kind without doing your homework. You must be prepared. Read everything in advance and highlight it. And if you need to put stickies on something, or if you need to ask a question ahead of time, I always like to ask questions on the finance committee for NAR, because I've actually I'm the most senior person in our nation, having done 14 years with the finance committee. So, but with a background from the American Institute of Banking, I know how to read a P&L, and I know where there's oddities. So it's best not to ask questions and surprise anybody. It's best to ask questions up front. I know Joel appreciates it, and the people at NAR do. And when I do ask a question from the microphone at CAR, NAR, Stacy says, Mom, you've got to go up and ask the question up there. I said, Stacy, just wait. I already sent it to the staff. So you've got to be kind.
Yes.
You have to be kind to others to win your arguments.
Right. I mean, that's the way. You aren't typically as effective when you've kind of left bodies in your wake. And you're reminding me of in the early years that I worked at CAR, way before computers and everything was online, we would have collating parties before all of the meetings, because we'd have all these issues, all these background papers, and they'd be different colors and so on. And I still remember looking at you in the meeting and seeing that you had highlighted things, which is exactly what I had done too. So I still print things out, it's just, you gotta kind of got to do what works for you. So one of the things I think we'd all love to know is, how do you de-stress? How do you navigate? I mean, it is a crazy time right now. Are there any special things you're doing or advice on just how to cope?
Well, because I live with an alpha dog, and Leslie does too, and both of us ladies are alpha dogs in a way. I like my own quiet time.
Yes.
So I like to get up early in the morning, which I did this morning, and I like to make my coffee. I like to get organized for the day. I like to read news, and quite often I'll take my dog on a 45-minute walk.
That would be Dolly.
Dolly is the lab. Dolly is the
Yeah.
white lab. And then by the time Harrison is up, I am ready to be a very good wife.
Right.
Just
right.
a very good wife. His coffee is waiting for him. His newspaper's waiting for him. And we have a lovely time. But I do need my own space. And I love to sit down with Harrison at the end of the day, and we'll critique politely news and do point counterpoint. And we usually watch a movie at night. So other than really walking my dog, I gave up Pilates. They're starting to open again. So once they'll offer classes, I think I'll get back to my routine of every other day of doing exercise, but getting out and walking the dog and smelling the roses, because I live near the mission and we've got a beautiful rose garden. And I took Dolly over there yesterday morning.
It's lovely there. Yeah.
Yes.
So you brought up Harrison. So I do want to ask you a little bit about your marriage. It's very unusual to have two alphas in the same marriage. And typically my sense of this is that many men are threatened by successful women, are competitive with successful women, that they just can't handle it and aren't willing to kind of lean out so you can lean in. And do you have anything you'd like to share on how that's worked with you and Harrison? You've been married now for 34 years.
Sure.
He definitely, I think we could easily, agreed, two alphas for 34 years. So you get your quiet time in the morning and then you're geared up to deal with him. But what else do you do? How else does that work? And what's he like, right, in terms of supporting you?
I was incoming president of our board of realtors, and I was 31 years old. I never had a lawsuit ever. And I was the broker for about 50 agents. So 2 real estate brokers contacted Harrison because I'm going to counter an offer that 4 of us realtors owned. Now, when you have tenants in common, you have to have 4 signatures, not 1. One of my partners of the 4 signed an offer, an acceptance. So when I prepared a counter offer, I'm not going to go along with this. These 2 gentlemen hired Harrison Bull, B-U-L-L. And I went into a mediation with Harrison, those 2 guys, the 4 of us, and my attorney was a corporate attorney. And he was a very tiny person, and he never said anything during this mediation. And the mediation was not going well at all. And I don't know if Harrison said it first or I did, but I said, we're going to have to see you in court. That's what I said. He goes, you know what? He said, I think you're a bitch. And I said, well, you're a pig. And I said, we will see you in court. So we ended up going to court. We did settle in court. I did go through a divorce. I loved being a single woman for about 5 years. But when I needed to be a plaintiff and sue, I knew who I was going to hire. And I hired Harrison. After one date, I had a conference with my little girls. And I said, okay, Stacy and Stephanie, someday I'm going to marry him, but it's our secret. We're not going to tell him. And 2 years later, we did get married. Now, in dealing with someone who's a high-powered trial attorney, what I learned is I need him because I'm growing businesses. He writes one hell of a letter to any opponent of ours, and he is ferocious in court. But at home, I don't bother him with little stuff, minutia. He was a Marine, and they always have a saying, a need to know. If there's no need to tell him, this is my secret, I'm sharing with all of you, I don't tell him. So being very kind to your husband is important, because an alpha dog is not going to give another alpha any sympathy. Right, Leslie?
Yes, but what does he do for you? You know, because I think my impression is he's incredibly supportive and proud of you, and doesn't feel like your success takes away from who he is. So is that correct? And how does he show that? Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right. Remember I said he courted me for 2 years. Every Monday morning at my office, huge bouquets of flowers showed up. And still, after 34 years of marriage, he will walk into the house and surprise me. I love flowers, as you can tell. And he's always been extremely, extremely kind to me. He's never really said, no, you can't have that, or you can't buy that. In 2007, I fell in love with a convertible, and he said, this is when he said, you can't have that because you're ageist. This will not look good in a recession that you are getting an expensive red Jaguar convertible. So I moped and moped for about 8 weeks, and Christmas, with his own money, he put a big bow on the car and he bought it for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have quite a love affair. On Facebook, on our anniversary, I always say it went from a warfare to a love affair.
It's just wonderful.
So, you know.
Let me just ask you a little bit about raising Stacy and Stephanie. You know, what kind of advice have you given them over the years about, you know, careers, life, wisdom? What is that what are those relationships like for you now?
Well, that's why I'm in Santa Barbara, is because Stacy lives about a quarter mile from me, and Stephanie, with her twin boys and her husband, live about a half a mile from me. So no one is prying me out of Santa Barbara. Harrison would have moved to a lower tax state many, many years ago. And there's no way. I'm too ingrained in our community. But one of the things I've always said to my daughters, there's always a thin yellow line. You could be driving down the highway. Your husband could be driving, and someone is texting and crosses the yellow line and takes you out, or takes your husband out. And I told my daughters in a very loving way, never be dependent on a man. And I really meant that, because you never know, whatever partner you have, the twists and turns in life, and you may have to step up and take care of your children and yourself. So that was my very sage advice. And both daughters run very successful companies. If something ever happened to their partners, they could carry on. And I'm probably an example of having said that to them when they were very young.
That's really wonderful to hear. And there've been so many women that have shared on the WomanUP stage that have really talked about being in that position. And some have been very prepared for it, and others won't ever be unprepared for it again, but we really are this transitional generation, growing up in the 50s and the 60s, there was a whole different set of expectations and realities than there are today.
No, it's very, very true. And I have actually coached some of our younger women who have young children. And I shared with them when I was 22, Stacy was 9 months old. And I took her on caravan. I had her in her playpen at open houses. And within 2 years, Stacy and I became the #1 team in Santa Barbara, selling to all the Vietnam vets who were returning, because I learned everything I could about VA financing. And we got the honor of the most units sold my second year in real estate. So
Wow.
Stacy, having been there in real estate with me all these years, has assimilated quite a bit. So, and Stephanie too, she owns her own company, employs about 23 people, and she's doing marvelous. But never exclude your children from your business. Leslie, you've seen me take Stacy and Stephanie when they were teenagers to Washington, D.C., to NAR meetings, to New Orleans, and include them in what we were doing. And their eyes were so big when I took them to the Capitol or they went to Sacramento. And I'm really proud in my own region here in Ventura. One of the young men brought his 2 sons to meet Congresswoman Lois Capps last year before she termed out. And I said, you are doing such a service by including your children in your business and being a working example.
That's right. That's right. I mean, both of my daughters remember coming to hear me speak from time to time. And I don't think I ever realized how, supportive they were and impressed they were until they were much, much older. It really makes an impression on them.
It's true.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, we talk a lot about learning, like failures aren't failures. It's just one more opportunity to learn. And as you look at your career, either in real estate or in organized real estate, can you point to an example of that and what you kind of took away from that experience? Is there anything that just has stuck with you for a long, long time, a hard lesson learned, if you will?
Sure, because
we've all got a lot of those, right?
Remember, I'm a graduate of the American Institute of Banking, and I know banking. When I was first married, I didn't take charge of our finances at all. Yet we had accumulated about 12 rental properties. And I was really big in education. And I closed a very large 1031 exchange in the 80s and put the money in the bank. And little did I know that when Black Monday hit, that my husband had been playing the stock market, the commodities. So I wasn't as well off as I thought I was when I asked for a divorce, because we were not on the same page. And when he told me our bank account was about $2,000, and I thought it was a lot more because of what I had just funded, that was a lesson learned.
Right.
Never be too trusting with your assets and your children's future.
Wow, Diana, thank you for sharing that. That's very, very sobering, but it certainly put you on a different track immediately.
Oh, for sure, I was getting a divorce. For sure, I was getting a divorce.
Right, right. So any parting words of wisdom, and then we'll see if we have any questions from the audience, anything that we didn't cover that we can talk about?
I think we really covered it. Getting that DSA award last month, I have to tell you, I just dropped 36 letters in the mail to my siblings and my cousins. And I said, the reason why I'm getting this award is because of our heritage, because we all learned about a work ethic, to be honest and give it your all. And I said, and most of all, try to be happy. And I said, I hope this letter goes into our family album. And I see many of you teaching your own children these great qualities about a work ethic, honesty, and integrity.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, let me just ask one other question about organized real estate and navigating not only the policies, but the politics at the local, state, national level. You've obviously done that incredibly well. Is it easy? And, you know, any advice there in terms of navigating? Because I know we've got people that are just starting into the system and wondering, you know, what committee should I go for? And how do I get, you know, be a vice chair? Like, how does all of that work? So how do you get started?
You get started by looking up to someone and asking them to give you advice. I probably write 40 to 50 letters every year for someone, for people around the United States to be a vice chair and someone want to be a chair. And when I look at their committee experience, they've never served on a committee. So I will actually pick up the phone and call and say, I'm going to give you some advice. I would love to write this letter of support for you, but you need to be on the committee first and get ingrained, get to know the staff. Very important.
Right.
And then in a couple of years, I'll recommend you to be vice chair. So you need to have someone that you know, another Diana in your realm that can guide you for appointments to serve where you've got talent to offer.
Right.
And take that advice and then go for it. And don't be shy to get up to the microphone and ask questions in a very respectful way. That's how people will say, oh, she's really smart. She asked a great question we didn't think about. Right. So find someone and then navigate and get people to support you.
You know, maybe one of the, I guess the last thing I want to just ask you about, because you kind of started out talking about positivity. And, you know, I am surprised when I meet people that'll say, I can't believe there's any transactions happening right now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, of course there are. So how does the market look from the perspective of Santa Barbara? What have you been seeing the last couple of months, and how are you feeling about the next couple going forward? So this is what I usually talk about, but I'm not doing that today. I'm going to ask you to do it.
Here's a perfect example. Last week, a listing came out for 1.2 million. Now remember, that's our median. Stacy wrote an offer. There were 17 offers on this property, 17. She bid it from the 1.2. Her client bid it into 1.4 something. There were 2 higher offers, but because the other agent knew Stacy's reputation of getting things closed and returning phone calls, she had her offer accepted out of the 17. And I know now what this
so proud.
What this says, oh, I'm proud mommy, of course, but there's 16 more buyers out there right now in that price range looking for property. And we are doing business because people are still moving, where they're moving out of state. 2 of our last clients moved out of state. We have Silicon Valley people up in that San Jose area who look at Santa Barbara and think we're a bargain. Google has just signed 3 leases here. So there's a lot of tech up and down this whole coast. And once we start going up into the $2.5 million range, that's where it slows down. And the reason why it's slowing down, people are watching the stock market very closely. go up 500, drop 500.
Right.
And money people are being a little bit more conservative. When I talked to Jeannie Radsick, our president of CAR, I was texting with her the other evening, and she was out showing property that day, that night. So agents who have earned a good reputation and have a big referral base from existing clients and a good referral base from realtors in other cities and states are doing a lot of business.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to end this. I think reputation is everything. And I look at you and your reputation, all these years of supporting women, being a badass, you know, not being shy about fighting for what's right. So anyway, Diana, I just appreciate you taking the time so much to share some of your insights with the WomanUP community, and really look forward to hopefully seeing you at some point. We'll
Yes.
see. So
Thanks.
anyway,
Pleasure chatting with you, Leslie. Anytime.
all right, thank you. And thank you everyone who joined us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.